Gong Li Quan, power fist. This particular 套路, or form, sequence, war dance, was one that I learned when I was 16 from my Mantis Boxing 师傅, 螳螂拳师傅, Master Randy Brown. At that time, I didn't think much of it. It was basically my 基本功. During the pandemic 3 years ago, I decided to dive back into this and create a technical proposal, giving insights into what the applications of the movements might be. I feel called to revisit Gong Li Quan and give a particular movement within the set a closer look. What's up, everybody? This is Vincent Tseng, the Wandering Warrior. Now, as I said in the introduction, today we're going to be diving into one specific move within Gong Li Quan. Now, Gong Li Quan is a particular set, or 套路, that was adopted by the Jingwu Athletic Association, and they have promoted it kind of as a power and structure and strength building routine. That said, to my eye, and based on my experiences, based on what I know of Northern Chinese boxing, traditional martial arts, I'm seeing a lot of wrestling with some striking and some grabbing and striking and throwing, right? I'm seeing a lot of that type of stuff with a heavy emphasis on the wrestling. Most Northern Chinese boxing forms, especially if they're part of that umbrella or common vernacular, common language of changquan, long fist, long boxing, is a lot of their forms are combos. Each road of the form is a combination that you do on somebody, and it's sort of a template or a starting point on how to approach the fight. So what's interesting to me about this one move is that although it is one move, it looks like it could have multiple applications rather than being a specific technique. So without further ado, let's explore this move and what it might mean. So this one is going to be 1, 2, there are 6 ways to interpret one. You can't go any lower. Down here, I'm going. From here, I'm going. Okay, I want you guys to get up and try that move. Try it yourself and think about what it could be. Think about it. Feel it out. Go through the whole motion. Go through the whole motion. Shift your body, right? Turn in the legs. Settle your weight. Boom. Wipe and punch. Wipe and punch, right? And just letting you know, it might not be a punch. It might be a punch. Regardless, that's the first one we're going to explore. Let's say it is a punch. What does that look like? Now, if we were to take this at face value and think of it as a punch down the center line, you technically could, but it seems like you would get punished. Against a large committed attack like an overhand right, wiping and getting to the flank and punching the floater ribs, that can work. It's not bad. But there's a bunch of other answers that might have been more common, and we do see them quite a bit in other systems and styles. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times when you can lower your hands and just blast away. We do see this at moments in MMA, but this is obviously risky. You have to set it up properly. I'm not saying you can't punch like this, but there are risks. So for the moment, let's just say it could be punching, but it's probably not your primary way of striking if you want to keep your face or your nuts. That said, you can punch like this. There are angles at which it is safe to punch like this. And if you do, that 平锤, that flat punch, is really good for knocking that jaw. So it is powerful if properly set up. something to consider. So maybe it's not a punch, or at least maybe it's not that straightforward. Let's say that wiping motion has some kind of gripping or grip breaking aspect involved, and this is not just a punch, but it's forcing their weight over a certain way. Well, if we do it from the front, face to face, this is what it might look like. So in this scenario, I'm specifically having it done off of a grip break, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be off of that. I could just be grabbing someone's arm. I could have grabbed their sleeve, wound it around, wiped around, pulled, gotten that leg out, and then tripped them, right? It doesn't have to be off of that grip defense situation, but I just want to play with that. Either way, this is a reaping leg or a 切 or 跨门砍 type of movement. 切 and 跨门砍 are actually 保定摔跤 terms for that. In that wrestling style, 切 meaning to cut, 跨门砍 crossing door and chop. In 7-star Mantis Boxing, 七星螳螂拳, this is actually done very similarly, just with an open palm instead of a punch coming out. But otherwise, the same move. So I think there is validity to this application for sure. Okay, now, a lot of throws aren't done face to face with the opponent. A lot of them end up turning. So let's follow that train of thought. We're brushing something, wiping something, pulling, but we're turning away from the opponent. With that footwork, with that sort of bow stance or mountain climber stance, gong bu, deng san bu type of posture. What does that look like? Now, just like the throw before this one, this throw is very common in the Chinese martial arts. Many Chinese boxing systems have it. Case in point, Tan Tui, the 12 roads of Tan Tui, Tan Tui 12路, one of the roads prominently features this specific technique. This is also, of course, a very common technique found in 摔跤 and Mongol Bo. I do want to point out, however, that these two throws, whether it's the reaping leg or that springing trip, both of them involve me actually turning, twisting, maybe a little bit more than is done in the form, and ideally kind of pushing downwards. Okay. So what if it is pulling and punching, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with throwing? But what if it is? So one thing has come up quite often in my research, my study, and my training, live practice of traditional Chinese martial arts. It's that people wear clothes, right? So if we go back and we look at the two previous throws that this could be, well, part of that was the whole collar, lapel, sleeve grabbing dynamic. So let's go further down that path. Just as judo and shuaijiao, Mongol Bo have their jacket wrestling specific techniques and getting people's hands off of you, I believe it's very possible so did the Chinese. So in shuaijiao, today known as Chinese wrestling, an offshoot of Mongolian wrestling, there is a concept known as si tong. Si as in to tear, tong as in to stab. But that stab is like a punch with a stabbing energy through their body, right? To punch and tear away, to get their grips off, and to destabilize and unbalance them at the same time. This is an awesome technique and an integral part of this style of wrestling. The Mongolians have the same concept. The Manchurians called it jafunumbi, and jafunumbi, I believe, means something like tear and hit. So there's this concept, and if I'm reading the movement right, if I'm feeling it out correctly, I think that there is a case for it in Chinese boxing as well. Chinese boxing obviously has a lot of wrestling in it, at least for many of the styles. And it's entirely possible this is off of a sleeve grab and not a lapel or collar grab. So you see, this movement is actually quite modular, right? It can be punching, although there's many cases where I wouldn't punch like that. But there are a few cases where I can and could, and sometimes do. Right? There are moments where you punch like that, but it's not the norm. There are definitely moments where that reaping leg or 切 or 砍 looks like that. There are moments where that 弹 or 登步敲, depending on what system you're talking about, right? That Y looks like that. And then, you know what? There are moments when you're trying to get someone off of your sleeve or to get the grip off, that you end up pulling and punching in that fashion. Sometimes it literally is a punch. You get your hand out and bang, blast them in the floater ribs, or you blast them across the jaw. That's a powerful, potentially knockout or TKO type of blow, right? So, yeah, they all have varying levels of validity, which is quite interesting. Well, there you guys have it. One move, many applications. If you guys have personal opinions over what it might be, or if you think I missed something, if you think it's just one of those options and you have a very strong case for why it's one of those and not potentially the others, if you think it's all of the above and more, comment down below and let me know your thoughts. In any case, there's more to come on traditional martial arts as a whole, but especially long fist, long boxing, 长拳related stuff, and in the near future, more 弹腿. In any case, guys, thank you for joining me on my journey. I salute yours. Peace.